the dance that shouldn't have happened. Eleanor Reed pushed her glasses against her face, trying to balance the tray of canapés she was serving to the guests. She worked as a waitress on weekends to supplement her salary as an art teacher at a public school in Hackney, East London. The extra money helped pay for the rent on the small flat she shared with her friend Amelia, and the expenses for materials she bought for her students when the school budget fell short. "Sorry," she mumbled when she bumped into a man in an impeccable suit. He barely looked at her before returning to his conversation. Tonight was different, though. She wasn't working. She was a bridesmaid at her childhood friend Olivia's wedding, a lavish affair at one of London's most exclusive Mayfair hotels. Eleanor felt out of place among the glamorous guests in her bright yellow dress, the only one she could afford that was formal enough for the occasion. On the other side of the ballroom, Ethan Blake checked his watch for the third time in 10 minutes. Corporate takeovers and multi-million-pound deals were his comfort zone, not these social gatherings filled with small talk and fake smiles. He sipped his whiskey, standing alone near the bar, watching his younger brother, Ryan, dance with his new bride. "You could at least pretend to be having fun," Ryan had told him earlier. "It's my wedding day, for God's sake." As CEO of Blake Enterprises, Ethan had little time for personal connections. His penthouse overlooking the Thames was impressive, but empty. His calendar was full of meetings, not memories. At 35, he had everything money could buy, and nothing that really mattered. "Ethan, there you are," his mother approached, pulling along a woman in a bright yellow dress. "Olivia's friend needs a dance partner, and you've been standing here like a statue all night." Before he could protest, Ethan found himself being practically pushed toward the dance floor with the bridesmaid, who looked as uncomfortable as he felt. "I'm Eleanor," she said, adjusting her glasses. The metal brackets of her braces caught the light when she gave an awkward smile. "Ethan," he replied curtly, placing his hand on her waist as the music slowed. He noticed immediately how she didn't fit the mold of the other women at the wedding. No designer dress, no perfect makeup, no calculated charm. She didn't try to impress him with questions about his company or comments about his family's wealth. "You don't want to dance with me," Eleanor stated matter-of-factly after a moment of silent swaying. Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me." "It's fine. Your mum forced you, and you'd rather be anywhere else. I get it." She shrugged. "I'd rather be grading my students' artwork right now, to be honest." Something about her blunt honesty caught him off guard. "You're a teacher?" "Art. Public school. Not exactly glamorous, but I love it." As they moved across the floor, Ethan found himself actually listening to her talk about her students, her passion evident in the way her eyes lit up behind those oversized glasses. "What about you?" she asked. "Let me guess. Something that requires that permanent, serious expression and makes too much money." Ethan almost smiled. "Almost. Something like that. Must be exhausting," she said, not unkindly. For the first time that evening, Ethan felt seen, not as a Blake, not as a CEO, just as a person. It was unsettling and oddly refreshing. When the music ended, Eleanor stepped back quickly. "Well, thanks for the dance. You can go back to your whiskey and I'll go back to trying not to trip in these heels." Ethan watched her walk away, disappearing into the crowd of guests. She hadn't tried to extend their interaction, hadn't slipped him her number, hadn't asked for a business card. As he returned to his spot by the bar, he realized he was still thinking about her honest eyes and that bright yellow dress that somehow seemed more authentic than all the designer gowns in the room. For the rest of the evening, his gaze kept drifting to find her in the crowd, watching as she laughed with friends, helped Olivia with her dress, and danced enthusiastically with the other bridesmaids. Eleanor Reed lived in a different world from his, one of budget constraints and public school classrooms. But there was something about her that made his world of board meetings and business deals suddenly seem hollow. When the wedding ended and guests began to leave, Ethan found himself looking for her one last time, but she was already gone. He told himself it was better that way. Their worlds had collided for one dance, and that was all it should be. Yet as his driver took him back to his empty penthouse, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted inside him, all because of a dance that wasn't supposed to happen. What do you think Ethan will do now that Eleanor is clearly on his mind? What's the boldest step you've ever taken to reconnect with someone after a brief but impactful encounter? Share your story in the comments. 3 days after the wedding, Ethan sat in his corner office, overlooking the London skyline, unable to focus on the acquisition reports in front of him. His mind kept drifting to the woman in the yellow dress. He'd found himself Googling Eleanor Reed Art Teacher London the night before, and after some digging, located her professional Instagram account, filled with photos of student artwork and classroom projects. "Mr. Blake, your 2 o'clock is here," his assistant announced through the intercom. Ethan nodded, closing the browser tab, where Eleanor's smiling face looked back at him from a school fundraiser photo. This was ridiculous. He was acting like a teenager with a crush. The meeting dragged on. Executives discussing profit margins and market expansion. Ethan contributed when necessary, but part of him was elsewhere. When everyone finally left, he picked up his phone and opened Instagram again. Before he could talk himself out of it, he sent her a direct message. "I enjoyed our dance at the wedding. Would you be interested in getting coffee sometime?" He set the phone down, immediately regretting the impulse. Someone like Eleanor probably had a boyfriend anyway. She'd probably. His phone buzzed. Ethan Blake? The chap who looked like he'd rather be having a root canal than dancing with me? That's surprising. He found himself smiling at her response. "I deserve that. But yes, that's me." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. "Why?" Ethan paused. Why indeed? He typed the truth. "I can't stop thinking about our conversation. It was the only real one I had all night." This time, her response came quickly. "There's a small coffee shop called The Daily Grind on Brick Lane, Saturday 10 a.m. I have to grade papers, so I can't stay long." Eleanor arrived at the coffee shop 15 minutes early, nervously adjusting her glasses. Why had she agreed to this? She'd spent hours debating what to wear before settling on jeans and a simple blouse. Nothing fancy. She wasn't going to pretend to be someone she wasn't for Ethan Blake. She spotted him immediately when he walked in. Impossible not to in his tailored casual clothes that probably cost more than her monthly rent. He carried no hint of corporate swagger, though. If anything, he looked almost uncertain. "You came," she said. When he approached her table, "Did you think I wouldn't?" He sat down across from her. "People like you usually have assistants cancel at the last minute. People like me?" Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Rich guys who send impulsive messages and then remember they have better things to do." He looked genuinely surprised. "Is that what you think of me?" The waitress came by, and they ordered a simple black coffee for him, a chai latte for her. "I don't know what to think of you," Eleanor admitted. "That's why I'm here." Their drinks arrived, and an unexpected conversation began to unfold. They talked about growing up, his privileged childhood under the weight of family expectations, her parents, who had emigrated from the Caribbean and worked multiple jobs to give her opportunities they never had. "Is that why you teach?" he asked. "Because of your parents?" Eleanor nodded. "My dad always said education was the one thing nobody could take away from you." Her expression darkened slightly, though some people tried to take everything else. Before Ethan could ask what she meant, Eleanor changed the subject. "What about you? Did you always want to run the family business?" "I never considered another option," he said. "It was expected. And if it wasn't, what would you do?" The question caught him off guard. No one had ever asked him that before. "I don't know," he admitted. "Maybe something with architecture. I used to design buildings as a kid." Eleanor smiled. So there is a creative person hiding under that serious exterior. The conversation flowed easily after that. 1 hour turned into 2. Eleanor's papers remained ungraded. "Would you like to see where I teach?" she asked suddenly. "The school's open today for a weekend art program." Ethan hesitated only briefly before nodding. "I'd like that." The public school building was nothing like the private academies Ethan had attended. Faded paint, outdated facilities, but covered in vibrant student artwork that transformed the space. Eleanor led him to her classroom, where a few students were working on weekend projects. They looked up curiously when she entered with Ethan. "This is Mr. Blake, everyone. He's visiting our classroom today." A young girl with braids approached them, proudly holding up a painting. "Miss Reed, I finished the sunset." Eleanor knelt down to the girl's level, examining the artwork with genuine interest. "Maria, the colors you blended here are beautiful. Look at how the orange transitions to purple." Ethan watched as Eleanor moved around the room, giving each student personalized attention. The children adored her. That was obvious. In this humble classroom, she was more confident and alive than anyone he'd met in boardrooms or galas. When they left an hour later, something had shifted between them. "Thank you for showing me your world," Ethan said, as they walked toward the car park. Eleanor looked at him thoughtfully. "Maybe next time you can show me yours." Ethan nodded, realizing he wanted nothing more than for there to be a next time. What had started as curiosity had grown into genuine admiration. But as he watched her wave goodbye, a nagging thought troubled him. The name Reed had triggered something in his memory, something connected to his father's business dealings years ago, something he wasn't sure he wanted to explore. What do you think is the hidden connection between Ethan's family business and Eleanor's past? How would you confront someone you cared about if you discovered a painful truth about their family? Share your advice in the comments. Over the next few weeks, Ethan and Eleanor's relationship grew beyond coffee shop meetings into something neither had expected. They explored London together, Eleanor showing him small art galleries he never knew existed, Ethan introducing her to hidden restaurants accessible only to those in the know. "This weekend," Ethan said during their Friday phone call, "there's an art retreat in the Cotswolds. Local artists teaching workshops, exhibitions. I thought you might be interested." "For the weekend?" Eleanor hesitated. "Separate rooms," he clarified quickly. "The resort has a bungalow setup. I just thought you'd enjoy the workshops." After a pause, Eleanor agreed. "I'd like that." The weekend exceeded both their expectations. Eleanor thrived in the creative environment, participating in every workshop available. Ethan discovered he enjoyed sketching, something he hadn't done since childhood. Saturday evening found them walking along the beach at sunset, their shoes in hand. "You're different here," Eleanor observed. "More relaxed." "I feel different," Ethan admitted. "Away from the company, the responsibilities, away from being a Blake." She nodded. "Sometimes the name feels more like a burden than a privilege." Eleanor stopped walking. "Can I ask you something? Why me? You could be with anyone. Models, socialites, people from your world." Ethan turned to face her, sand shifting beneath their feet. "Because you're real. You don't care about my money or my last name. You call me out when I'm being arrogant. You make me better." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he brushed a strand of hair from her face. Their first kiss was gentle, tentative, and perfect. The rest of the weekend passed in a blur of connection. They shared stories, dreams, and a deepening attraction. By Sunday afternoon, as they prepared to return to London, Eleanor felt herself falling for him, despite all her reservations. 2 days after their return, Eleanor was meeting with parents at a school fundraiser when she overheard a conversation that made her blood run cold. "That's Arthur Blake's son," one parent whispered to another, nodding toward Ethan, who had surprised Eleanor by attending. The one who took over Blake Enterprises. Blake? The other parent looked shocked. Isn't that the company that destroyed half the businesses in the Hackney area? Yes, my husband lost his job in that whole mess. Something about property acquisition that went ugly. Eleanor froze. Hackney area. Her neighborhood. Her family. The memories flooded back. Her father coming home 10 years ago, defeated, saying he'd been let go after Blake Enterprises bought the company he worked for. The subsequent bankruptcy, when they couldn't find new jobs. Her mother's illness that went untreated because they couldn't afford health insurance. Arthur Blake, Ethan's father. She moved through this crowd robotically. Images of her father's humiliation and their family's struggle collided with the tender moments she'd shared with Ethan just days before. When she reached him, her face must have betrayed her emotions. "Eleanor? What's wrong?" Ethan reached for her hand. She pulled away. "Blake Enterprises, your father's company." His expression changed, understanding dawning. "Eleanor? Did you know?" Her voice trembled. "Did you know what your family did to the Hackney area? To my father?" The color drained from Ethan's face. "Your father is Michael Reed?" "Was," Eleanor corrected, tears forming. "He died 3 years ago, after your father's company destroyed everything he'd worked for." "Eleanor, Did you know? When you looked me up, found out who I was? Was this some kind of game to you?" "No." Ethan's voice rose, drawing attention from nearby parents. He lowered it quickly. "I didn't realize until after we'd already met. The name seemed familiar, but I didn't put it together until..." "Until when?" Eleanor demanded. "Last week," he admitted. "I found documents in my father's old files." The betrayal cut deeper than she could have imagined. "Last week, before our trip. You knew, and you didn't tell me. I was trying to figure out how to tell you, to explain." "Explain what? How your family built their fortune by destroying others? How you kept this from me while..." She couldn't finish, tears now flowing freely. "It wasn't like that," Ethan insisted. "My father made those decisions before I joined the company. I didn't know the details until..." "Stop!" Eleanor held up her hand. "Just stop. I trusted you. I let myself..." She shook her head. "I need to go." "Eleanor, please!" But she was already walking away, weaving through confused parents and teachers. The pain was overwhelming. Not just the reopened wound of her family's suffering, but the fresh cut of Ethan's deception. Outside in the car park, she reached her car, just as Ethan caught up. "Eleanor, let me explain. There's more to the story than..." "There's nothing more to explain." She got into her car, wiping tears angrily. "You're a Blake. I'm a Reed. There's a reason those names don't belong together." As she drove away, leaving Ethan standing alone in the car park, Eleanor felt something breaking inside her. She had allowed herself to believe, for a brief moment, that their different worlds didn't matter. Now the past had resurfaced to prove how wrong she had been. What will Ethan do now to try and make amends with Eleanor? How do you think this revelation will impact his relationship with his own father's legacy? Share your predictions in the comments. For the first time in his life, Ethan Blake couldn't focus on work. He sat in his Mayfair office, staring at the same spreadsheet for hours, seeing only Eleanor's tear-stained face. 3 days had passed since she'd walked away. 3 days of unanswered calls and texts. "Mr. Blake?" His assistant knocked gently on the door. "The board is waiting." Ethan nodded, straightening his tie mechanically. In the meeting room, his father's old colleagues discussed quarterly projections, while Ethan's mind wandered to the Reed file he'd discovered, the acquisition that had shuttered several small businesses in a predominantly working-class East London neighborhood 10 years ago. "Ethan, your thoughts on the proposal?" The question snapped him back to the present. "I need more time to review," he said, standing abruptly. "We'll reconvene next week." Ignoring their surprised expressions, he left the building and drove without a destination in mind. Somehow he ended up in Eleanor's neighborhood, a world away from his downtown penthouse. The streets were lined with small businesses, a bakery, a repair shop, a colorful mural depicting the area's Caribbean heritage. This was what his father had nearly destroyed, what his family name had damaged. On impulse, he parked and entered a small cafe. The elderly woman behind the counter smiled warmly. "What can I get you, sir?" "I'm looking for Michael Reed's family," Ethan said before he could reconsider. "His daughter Eleanor teaches at the local school." The woman's smile faded. "Michael, may he rest in peace. A good man." She studied Ethan with sudden suspicion. "What business do you have with the Reeds?" "I need to speak with Eleanor's mother, please. It's important." Something in his expression must have convinced her. She wrote an address on a napkin. "Carmen lives there now. Smaller place since Michael passed. But I'm warning you, that family's been through enough." Carmen Reed was a short woman, with Eleanor's same expressive eyes, though hers carried decades more wisdom and sorrow. She regarded Ethan cautiously on her front porch. "Blake," she said, the name like vinegar on her tongue. "I knew who you were the moment I saw you. You looked like your father." "Mrs. Reed, Why are you here? Haven't your family taken enough?" Ethan swallowed hard. "I'm not here to take anything. I came to apologize." Carmen's expression didn't soften, but she stepped aside, allowing him into the modest living room. Photos of Michael and a younger Eleanor covered the walls. A happy family before everything changed. "Sit." Carmen gestured to a worn sofa. "Say what you came to say." Ethan remained standing. "What my father did to your husband, to this community, it was wrong. I've spent days going through the acquisition files. The tactics used were ruthless." "Ruthless?" Carmen repeated. "Is that what you call it when a man works 30 years for a company, then is thrown away without proper compensation? When families lose their homes, when a community is torn apart?" Each word felt like a physical blow. "No, I call it what it was, cruel and unjust. And why should I care what you think? You're a Blake." "I'm not asking for forgiveness," Ethan said quietly. "I know I don't deserve it. I'm here because your daughter saw something in me worth knowing, and I wasn't honest with her." Carmen's eyes narrowed. "Eleanor, what does she have to do with this? We've been seeing each other until she discovered who I was." Understanding dawned on Carmen's face. The mystery man who's been making her smile these past weeks. I should have known trouble would wear an expensive suit. "I didn't know who she was at first," Ethan explained. "When I realized the connection, I should have told her immediately. That's on me." Carmen studied him for a long moment. "My husband died believing your father cheated him out of his rightful compensation, that the system was rigged against people like us." "He was right," Ethan admitted. "The acquisition was structured to minimize payouts to employees. It was legal, but deeply unethical." He reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope. "This doesn't fix the past, but it's what Michael was owed, with interest. I calculated it myself." Carmen didn't take the envelope. "We don't want your money. It's not mine. It's what your husband earned." Ethan placed it on the coffee table. "Whether you accept it or not, I needed you to know the truth." As he turned to leave, Carmen spoke again. "My Eleanor has always been too forgiving, too willing to see the good in people." Her voice softened slightly. "She gets that from her father." Ethan paused at the door. "She deserves better than what my family did, better than what I did." "Yes," Carmen agreed. "She does." "What do you think Eleanor's reaction will be when she finds out about Ethan's actions? What's the most impactful way someone has ever tried to make amends with you or someone you know? Share your experiences below." Across town, Eleanor sat on her apartment floor, surrounded by student artwork she was supposed to be grading. Instead, her thoughts kept circling back to Ethan. The hurt was still raw, but questions now mingled with her anger. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. "That Blake boy came to see me today. We should talk." Eleanor's heart raced. Ethan had gone to see her mother. What could he possibly have said? Another text arrived from Amelia, her flatmate. "There's something you need to see at school. The art room, now." Confused, Eleanor drove to the school. The building was quiet after hours as she made her way to her classroom. When she opened the door, she gasped. The art room had been transformed. New easels replaced the broken ones. Shelves stocked with high-quality supplies lined the walls. A state-of-the-art projector hung from the ceiling. On her desk sat a simple note. "No strings attached. No name on the donation. Your students deserve the best tools to match their teacher's dedication. E." Eleanor sank into her chair, emotions warring within her. The gesture wasn't about buying forgiveness. She knew Ethan well enough to understand that. This was him trying to do something right, something meaningful, without taking credit. As tears welled in her eyes, Eleanor realized her heart was in a battle between the pain of the past and the possibility of a future she'd glimpsed in those brief weeks with Ethan. She didn't know which would win. For 2 weeks, Eleanor avoided thinking about Ethan. She threw herself into teaching, using the new supplies without acknowledging where they came from. Her students were thrilled with the upgraded classroom, creating art with an enthusiasm that normally would have filled her with joy. "Miss Reed, are you okay?" Maria asked one afternoon, noticing Eleanor staring absently at the window. "Of course, sweetie. Just thinking about our next project." But she wasn't. She was thinking about Ethan, about the text her mother had sent after his visit. "He didn't ask for forgiveness, Eleanor. He came to take responsibility. Your father would say that matters." Eleanor had been raised to believe in second chances, in redemption. Her father, despite everything that happened, never became bitter. "Holding on to anger," he used to say, "is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die." After school, Eleanor drove to the community center, where she volunteered teaching art to seniors. She was surprised to find the director, Mrs. Hernandez, beaming as she entered. "Eleanor, have you heard the wonderful news? We received funding for the entire year. All our programs are safe." "That's amazing," Eleanor smiled. "Which corporation finally approved our grant?" Mrs. Hernandez shook her head. "Not a corporation. An anonymous donor. They only asked that the money go directly to programming, not administration." Eleanor's heart skipped. Anonymous. Yes, isn't it wonderful? People still do good things without wanting credit. Throughout the evening, Eleanor kept hearing similar stories. The local clinic received new equipment. The after-school program got a transportation van. The neighborhood beautification project suddenly had funding. All anonymous. All in the last 2 weeks. On her way home, Eleanor detoured to her mother's house. Carmen was sitting on the porch, waiting as if she'd expected her daughter's visit. "It's him, isn't it?" Eleanor asked without preamble. "All these donations." Carmen nodded. "He's been busy. Why, what does he want?" I asked him the same thing when he called to make sure I'd received the pension money. Eleanor blinked in surprise. "He called you?" "To check I hadn't thrown his envelope away." Carmen's lips twitched. "I almost did. What did he say? About why he's doing all this?" Carmen patted the seat beside her. When Eleanor sat down, she took her daughter's hand. "He said he was raised to fix problems with money, because it was easier than fixing them with truth and hard work. He's trying to learn a different way." Eleanor looked away, conflicted emotions churning inside her. "I don't know what to do, Mama. Every time I start to soften, I remember what his family did to ours." "Your father lost his job because of Arthur Blake," Carmen said firmly. "Not because of his son. But Ethan is part of that company now. He benefits from what his father did. Yes, and now he's using those benefits to try to make amends. Carmen squeezed Eleanor's hand. I'm not telling you what to do, mija. Only you can decide if there's something worth saving there. Ethan was reviewing community investment proposals in his office when his assistant interrupted. Mr. Blake, there's an Eleanor Reed here to see you. His head snapped up. Send her in. Eleanor appeared in the doorway, looking out of place among the corporate luxury, but standing tall nonetheless. Thank you for seeing me without an appointment, she said formally. Ethan stood. You never need an appointment, Eleanor. An uncomfortable silence stretched between them. You've been busy, she finally said. The community center, the clinic, the school supplies. It was the least I could do. The least? Eleanor raised an eyebrow. It must be hundreds of thousands of pounds. Ethan shook his head. Money is easy for me to give. Too easy. It doesn't fix what happened. Then why do it? Because those organizations deserve support. Because that community deserves to thrive. He hesitated. And because I couldn't think of any other way to show you who I want to be. Eleanor studied him, really looking at him for the first time since that night at the school. He seemed different. The confident CEO replaced by someone more vulnerable, more human. My mother said you calculated my father's pension yourself. Ethan nodded. I spent 3 days going through every record. He was owed much more than what the company paid out. Why didn't you tell me about the connection when you first realized it? I was afraid, he admitted. Afraid of losing you. Afraid of being just another Blake in your eyes. He ran a hand through his hair. It was selfish. I'm sorry. Eleanor moved to the window, looking out at the city below. I've been angry for so long at what happened to my father, to our community. Finding out you were part of that family reopened wounds I thought had healed. I understand. She turned to face him. But my father also taught me that people shouldn't be judged by their names or where they come from, but by their actions. She took a deep breath. You've been trying to do the right thing, even knowing I might never speak to you again. I wouldn't blame you if you didn't. Eleanor stepped closer. I'm still hurt. I'm still working through what all this means. But I think I'd like to try talking again. Really talking. No more secrets between us. Hope flickered in Ethan's eyes. I'd like that. I'm not making any promises, Eleanor cautioned. I just know that when I tried to forget you, I couldn't. And that has to mean something. As they stood there in his office, two people from different worlds, connected by a painful past, but possibly a shared future, Eleanor made her choice. Not to forget or fully forgive yet, but to begin the journey of understanding, to see if what they had started could survive the truth of who they were. Would you like to get coffee? Ethan asked quietly. Start over? Eleanor nodded. Not starting over. Continuing. But honestly, this time. It wasn't a fairy tale reconciliation. It was better. It was real. This is a massive turning point. What challenges do you foresee for Ethan and Eleanor as they try to build a relationship based on honesty? What's the most important quality needed to mend a broken trust? Share your insights below. The late afternoon sunlight streamed through the windows of Ethan's penthouse as he paced nervously. After 3 months of rebuilding their relationship, coffee dates, honest conversations, and slow steps forward, Eleanor had agreed to come to his home for the first time. He'd spent hours trying to make the space less intimidating. Gone were the cold, modern art pieces his decorator had insisted upon, replaced with warmer tones and a few plants. Still, the floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing London's skyline couldn't hide the wealth gap between them. The doorbell rang. When he opened it, Eleanor stood there with a small canvas in her hands. I brought something, she said, stepping inside and taking in the space with wide eyes. It's too much, isn't it? Ethan gestured around self-consciously. Eleanor shook her head. It's just very you. organized, pristine. She handed him the canvas. Maybe this will help. It was a painting of the beach where they'd first kissed, vibrant colors capturing the sunset they'd watched together. Eleanor, this is beautiful. I thought your walls could use something with a story behind it. He placed it carefully on the mantelpiece. It's perfect. They moved to the balcony with glasses of wine, the city lights beginning to twinkle below them as dusk settled. I never imagined I'd be here, Eleanor admitted, in this place with you. I never imagined anyone would see me the way you do, Ethan replied. Beyond the name, the money. Eleanor turned to face him. I need to ask you something I've been afraid to ask. Anything. What happens next with us? She gestured between them. We've been rebuilding trust, getting to know each other again, but we're still from different worlds, Ethan. I'm still a teacher with student loans. You still run a company that could buy my entire school. Ethan set down his glass. I've been thinking about that too, about what it means for us. He took a deep breath. I was alone before I met you, Eleanor, surrounded by people, but completely alone. I had everything and nothing at the same time. And now I see what matters, what my father never understood. He took her hands in his. I don't want you to fit into my world. I don't want to change you or your life. I just want to be part of it, however that looks. It won't be easy, Eleanor warned. People will talk. Your board members, my colleagues. Let them talk. I'm not my father, Eleanor. I don't need you to be someone you're not to fit some image of what a Blake partner should be. And what about the company, the things it did? I'm changing it, Ethan said firmly. Not just for you, but because it's right. We've established a community restoration fund for neighborhoods impacted by past business practices. I've restructured the leadership to include more diverse voices. He squeezed her hands. I can't undo the past, but I can shape the future. Eleanor searched his face. You've really been doing all that? Yes, not for recognition, not even for your forgiveness, but because meeting you made me see things I was blind to before. The honesty in his voice moved her deeply. For months she'd been guarding her heart, afraid to fully trust again. But standing here with him, seeing the man he was becoming, the last of her resistance began to crumble. I was scared, she admitted. Not just of getting hurt again, but of losing myself in your world, of becoming someone my father wouldn't recognize. I would never want that, Ethan said softly. Your strength, your principles, they're why I fell in love with you. The words hung in the air between them. He hadn't planned to say it, but once spoken, he couldn't take it back. Didn't want to. Eleanor's eyes widened. Ethan, you don't have to say anything. I know it's... She stopped him with a kiss, soft and sure. When she pulled back, her eyes were bright with emotion. I love you too, she whispered. Despite everything, because of everything, I love who you are, who we are together. Ethan pulled her close, his heart fuller than he'd ever thought possible. They stood there on the balcony, the city spread out before them. Two worlds merged into one shared future. No more secrets, he promised. No more unsaid words between us. Eleanor nodded against his chest. Just truth, however complicated it might be. In that moment, their different backgrounds, their painful history, the obstacles still ahead, none of it mattered as much as the truth they'd finally spoken aloud. 6 months later, Eleanor stood in front of her class, guiding her students through a project about personal identity. The art room continued to thrive with the supplies that had appeared that pivotal day, though her students had long stopped asking about the mysterious benefactor. Miss Reed, is your boyfriend coming today? Maria, now in middle school, asked, paintbrush in hand. Eleanor smiled. Mr. Blake has a meeting, but he'll be here for the exhibition next week. Ethan had become a regular visitor at the school, first sitting quietly in the corner observing, then gradually helping students with their projects. The children adored him, especially when he shared stories about designing buildings as a child. After class, Eleanor checked her phone to find a message from Ethan. "Meeting ended early. Dinner at your mom's still on?" She texted back. "Yes. She's making pasties. Don't be late." Their lives had merged in ways neither had imagined possible. Eleanor remained dedicated to her teaching, refusing Ethan's initial offers to help with her student loans or rent. "I need to do this my way," she'd insisted, and he'd respected her independence. Meanwhile, Ethan had transformed Blake Enterprises from within. The company now funded education initiatives throughout London, prioritized ethical business practices, and had established a foundation to support communities previously harmed by corporate development. Not everything was perfect. There were still awkward moments at business functions when people whispered about Blake's schoolteacher girlfriend. There were still times when Eleanor felt out of place in Ethan's world of wealth and privilege, but they navigated these challenges together, learning and growing with each obstacle. That evening, Eleanor arrived at her mother's house to find Ethan already there, sleeves rolled up, helping Carmen in the kitchen. No, you need to fold it like this," Carmen was saying, demonstrating how to wrap the pasties in pastry. "Careful, Mama," Eleanor teased, setting down her bag. "He might hire you to teach his executive chefs." "His chefs could learn something from your mother," Ethan replied with a smile. Carmen swatted him with a dish towel. "Less talking, more wrapping." Watching them together still amazed Eleanor. Her mother, who had once spoken the name Blake with contempt, had gradually accepted Ethan on his own merits. The turning point had come when Ethan established a scholarship in Michael Reed's name for local students pursuing careers in skilled trades. "Not because I'm trying to buy your approval," he told Carmen, "but because your husband believed in the dignity of hard work. That deserves to be remembered." During dinner, Carmen shared stories of her childhood in the Caribbean, teaching Ethan phrases in Creole that made Eleanor blush and her mother laugh. This blending of their worlds had become their new normal, Ethan learning about her culture and community, while Eleanor navigated the corporate realm that was still foreign to her. "I'm meeting with the school board tomorrow," Eleanor mentioned as they cleared the table, "about expanding the arts program district-wide." "That's wonderful," Ethan said. "Your proposal was excellent. Did you help her with it?" Carmen asked him. Ethan shook his head. "She wouldn't let me," he said. "Said it needed to come from a teacher, not a businessman." Eleanor smiled. "I did let him proofread it." "After you'd finished everything," he added with pride. Later, as they walked to Ethan's car, he took her hand. "I have something to show you. A project I've been working on." "Another surprise?" Eleanor raised an eyebrow. "You know how I feel about those. This one's different. It's something I want your input on." They drove to a neighborhood near the school, the same area that had been affected by Blake Enterprises years ago. Ethan parked in front of a vacant lot, overgrown with weeds. "What is this?" Eleanor asked as they got out. Ethan handed her a folder. Inside were architectural drawings for a community arts center. "This land has been sitting unused since my father's company purchased it," he explained. "I want to give it back to the community, but with a purpose." Eleanor flipped through the plans, seeing spaces for classes, exhibitions, performances, all the things she'd dreamed of providing for her students and their families. "Ethan, this is..." She looked up at him, emotions welling. "This is incredible. It's just a concept," he said. "I want you to help design it. Make it what the community needs, not what I think they need." Eleanor looked from the plans to the empty lot, seeing not what was, but what could be. Much like she'd learned to do with Ethan himself. "Our worlds don't have to stay separate," he said softly. "They can become something new together." Standing there in the fading light, Eleanor realized that's exactly what they had been building all along. Not his life or her life, but a shared path forward that honored both their realities. 1 year later, the Reed Community Arts Center stood where once there had been only an empty lot and broken promises. The modern building, with its colorful murals, had become a neighborhood landmark, a place where local artists taught alongside visiting professionals, where children discovered talents they never knew they had, and where an entire community found its voice. Tonight was special. The center's first major exhibition, titled Invisible Transformations, featured work from Eleanor's students, exploring the theme of personal change. The gallery was filled with proud parents, community members, and even a few corporate sponsors, all mingling together in a space that bridged worlds once thought incompatible. Eleanor moved through the crowd in a simple blue dress, stopping to congratulate each young artist, her face glowing with pride. She checked her watch nervously. Ethan had texted that he was running late from a business trip, but promised he'd make it before the exhibition closed. "Miss Reed," Maria, now in secondary school, waved excitedly. "People are asking about buying my painting." "That's wonderful," Eleanor beamed, admiring how much the girl's talent had developed. "Remember, you set the price. Your art has value." As she continued through the gallery, Eleanor paused before a wall dedicated to her father's memory. Photos of Michael Reed working in his shop, teaching his daughter to paint, standing proudly in front of their first home. A timeline of a life well lived, despite its challenges. Beside the photos hung a plaque in honor of Michael Reed, who taught us that true wealth lies in creating beauty from whatever materials life provides. The words had been Ethan's suggestion, his way of acknowledging that some lessons couldn't be learned in boardrooms or business schools. Eleanor felt a presence behind her and turned, expecting another parent or teacher. Instead, Ethan stood there, slightly disheveled from rushing, his eyes fixed not on the exhibition, but on her. "You made it," she said softly. "I wouldn't miss this," he smiled, looking around the busy gallery. "This is amazing, Eleanor. You did all this." "We did," she corrected him. "This place exists because you believed in what it could be." "No," Ethan shook his head. "It exists because you showed me what matters." Over the past year, their relationship had deepened through shared purpose. Ethan had restructured his work life to make time for what he valued, delegating more responsibilities at Blake Enterprises while focusing on community investment initiatives. Eleanor had expanded her teaching beyond the classroom, developing programs that reached throughout London's underserved neighborhoods. They still lived separate lives in many ways. Eleanor in her flat near the school, Ethan in his penthouse downtown. But the boundaries between their worlds had blurred, creating something new and stronger than either had imagined possible. "I have something for you," Ethan said, reaching into his jacket pocket. "Ethan, you didn't need to bring anything." He pulled out a small wooden sculpture, a dancer with oversized glasses and braces, captured mid-twirl in a bright yellow dress. "One of your students made this," he explained. "She gave it to me last week when I visited your class, said it reminded her of a story I once told about meeting you." Eleanor took the sculpture, running her fingers over the delicate details. "Our dance at the wedding. The dance that wasn't supposed to happen," Ethan added with a smile. They stood together, surrounded by art created by children whose lives they'd both helped shape, in a building that represented everything they'd become together. "I still don't like parties much," Eleanor said, looking up at him. "But I'd dance with you again." Ethan's expression softened as he gazed at the woman who had changed everything for him, the teacher who had become his greatest lesson. "I would wait a lifetime for that dance," he replied. He pulled her close, not caring who was watching. In that moment, there was no wealthy businessman and no Kuhl teacher, no Blake and no Reed. Just two people who had found something real in a world often defined by appearances. Around them, Eleanor's students pointed and giggled at their teacher dancing in the middle of the gallery. parents smiled knowingly. The past, with all its pain and division, hadn't disappeared, but it no longer controlled their future. As they swayed together among the artwork that celebrated transformation, Eleanor rested her head against Ethan's chest, feeling the steady rhythm of his heart. They hadn't needed grand declarations or dramatic gestures to find their way forward. They had simply created a space where both could be fully themselves, a quiet place of belonging that, like all true art, had emerged from the beautiful collision of different worlds. Have you fallen in love with Eleanor and Ethan's journey from that unexpected dance to their beautiful transformation? Their story shows us how two people from different worlds can build something meaningful together despite a painful past. We'd love to hear your thoughts on their relationship and what touched you most about their journey in the comments below. If you enjoyed The Dance That Shouldn't Have Happened, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more heartfelt stories that explore love, forgiveness, and personal growth. We're curious, which country are you watching from today? Let us know in the comments and tell us if there are other love stories across social divides you'd like us to share next.